sixth grade. So today we are going to be going into lesson 4, and the concept is, where do living things get the food that they need? And so we're going to start into that concept. So I have my cartoon about what flamingos eat, because they are pink because of the food they eat. They eat a kind of brine shrimp and algae that turn them pink. So the mama flamingo is saying, "Finish your dinner. Do you want to be pink or not?" Okay, I couldn't find anything to go with it, so I went with that. It's flamingos. All right. So today is the 1st of May. For your agenda today, we have your bell work question, then this video lesson, activity 4.1, and a student interactive notebook page. So you're going to have 2 things to do. Reminder, assignments must be turned in to count for attendance. Daily work needs to be done by 11:59 p.m. tonight. Please turn it in on time. It makes it very difficult to get your grades in correctly. If you are turning in things late, please turn them in on time. So your objective, by the end of this lesson, you will understand and differentiate what producers, consumers, and decomposers are, and the role they play in our environment. Okay, so quick review. Living organisms need food to provide energy for the organism to function and as building materials for the animal to grow and regenerate or make new cells. So unless the food is doing one of those 2 things, it's not considered a food for the organism. So for example, vitamins and minerals are not considered a food for humans. We need them to break down the food, but they aren't used as energy, and they are not used as building materials for our bodies to regenerate. Okay, so you have to have one of those 2 or both of those things to make it a food. And then our concept we're going to be working on today is that organisms get food from different sources, okay, in different ways. This is going to lead us into food chains and food webs in our next lesson. Okay, so we're going to talk about 3 kinds of organisms in a food chain or a food web. So we're going to start with a producer, and I'm going to make me smaller. You can't see. Okay, so a producer is any kind of green plant that makes its own food. These organisms use sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water through photosynthesis to make their own food. Okay, so a lot of people have a misconception that plants get their food from the soil. They don't. They get their food from a process called photosynthesis. Photo is light and synthesis is making. So they're making food from light. Okay, this is a chemical process that happens inside the plant cells. Unless you have chlorophyll and you can make photosynthesis, then you are not a producer. A producer is any kind of green plant. So a flower, some moss, anything. So on our next slide here, I've got some examples. Okay, so I've got an apple orchard. Okay, not only do I have the trees, I have the grass and the weeds all underneath here. I have a vegetable garden, okay, that someone has planted. I have a swamp. This is in Florida in the Everglades. This is somebody's flower bed. It's very pretty and manicured. Okay, this is actually up at Red Rock Canyon. All of these plants are producers. They produce their own food. Okay, the next slide. Consumers. A consumer is a living thing that gets its energy by eating producers or other living things. Okay, so consumers can't use the sun's energy directly like producers. I can't go out in the sun and I cannot make my own food. I don't have chlorophyll in my system. I don't have the chemical processes I need to be able to do that. So I have to eat producers or other consumers. So if you are a vegetarian, that means you only eat plants. You are only eating producers. If you are an omnivore, that means that you are eating plants and animals. Okay, so you are eating either a producer, or you are eating a consumer that is a little bit lower down the food web or food chain than you are. Okay, so if I go to eat a hamburger, so some of the things on my hamburger, I have the bun. The bun is made from wheat and wheat flour. Okay, that is a plant. It has lettuce on it. That's a plant. It has ketchup. Ketchup is made from tomatoes and sugar and spices. Sugar comes from plants. Tomatoes are a plant. They're kind of actually a berry. Okay, spices are kinds of plants. Okay, I'm going to have some cheese. Now, cheese comes from a consumer. Cheese comes from a cow, at least in hamburger land. Okay, and that is a product of a consumer. The meat comes from a cow. Okay, that's a consumer. The cow eats the plants, and then I eat the cow. Okay, so I eat both of these things. I must eat producers or other animals to obtain my energy and my building materials for my body. Okay, so here are some examples of some consumers. So I've got my cow, I've got a frog, I've got a coyote. So this one's a local. I've got a tiger, he's not a local. Okay, ladybugs, insects. Okay, many insects are consumers. Ladybugs eat another kind of insect called aphids. Aphids eat plants. So there's the chain. Okay, I've got I think it's a parrotfish, but I'm not sure. Okay, oh, look, I've got us. Humans are consumers. I've got a spider. I've got a bunny. Okay, so there are different levels of consumers. Just for your information, you don't need to know this quite yet, but there's something called a primary consumer, a secondary consumer, and a tertiary consumer. A primary consumer would be like the bunny. The bunny only eats plants. It's the first level up from the plants. Okay, and then I might have the tiger. Tigers eat plants and animals. Okay, so they eat some of the plants, some of the consumers, and some of the producers. Okay. Then the tertiary, those are the ones that eat. We are tertiary level predators. Okay. We're on the top of the food chain or the food pyramid as far as that goes, because we eat a lot of other things. We are at the top of that. But the only thing you need to remember for sixth grade, though, is consumers. Consumers consume producers and other consumers. Okay, our other one we're going to do, this is the last one, is a decomposer. Another kind of consumer eats only dead plants and animals. So these consumers are called decomposers. Decomposers break down the bodies of dead plants and animals and help the food energy inside those dead bodies get back into the soil, the water, and the air. Okay, if we did not have decomposers, then nothing would break down back into the basic blocks and molecules, and we would be stuck with all sorts of dead things all around us. Not only animals and people, but plants, and everything would not decay and go back into the life cycle. Okay, so some of these decomposers include worms, mushrooms, okay, a lot of insects that feed off of dead things like maggots. So I've got some pictures here. So I've got different kinds of sorry, I can't remember the right name. Bugs. Okay, so we got snails and slugs, millipedes, pill bugs, mites, springtails, earthworms. These are some maggots that are in a kind of soil. We've got mushrooms, we've got molds and fungi. All of these things break down those basic elements back, or basic, they break down the dead material back into its basic molecules and parts and elements. This is very important. This is just as important as the producers. Okay, it all works together. All right, so this is an example of a food web. We're going to get more into this, but I'd like to show you how it works now. So right here we have, this is a desert one. I found one that's close to us. Okay, this is the producers. We've got a Joshua tree, we've got a bush, we've got desert lily, cactus, brittle bush. Anything that's a plant that makes its own food is in this lowest level. This is the producer level. Then we have our primary consumers. They eat all of the things down here. Okay, and then we have our secondary consumers. They eat these, and sometimes they eat some of these. Okay, so you can see out here in our horned lizard, eats the brittle brush and the ants, and the quail eat the brittle brush. Desert lilies eaten by rabbits and the lizards. Do you see how it all gets tied up together? Now, some people said, oh, we should stick with just a food chain. A food web is much more appropriate for this. And we're going to get into this more why. I just wanted to give you a little taste of this. Okay, and then tertiary consumers, these are the top of the food web. Okay, so the cougar eats all of these. The desert eagle, he can eat all of these. But remember I told you it was a cycle? So it all comes back down here to the decomposers. Let's see if I can't move that. Okay, so this is a kind of mushroom. So fungi and dung beetles, all of these are the things that break down these after they die. Okay, that goes back into the earth as nutrients and minerals and all sorts of building blocks for that part of thing. And that gets put back into the plants. It's not their food. Remember, their food comes from the sun, but it uses this stuff to stay healthy. All righty. So our wrap up. Organisms use food for energy and building materials. Living things get their food in different ways. A producer is a kind of green plant that can make its own food with photosynthesis. Consumers are organisms that get their food from eating producers or other consumers. And decomposers are organisms that get their food from breaking down the remains of once living things. Okay, so today you are going to be putting in a new slide for your interactive notebook. Okay, so here we have the new slide. You're going to copy and paste this into your interactive notebook and you're going to fill out the information. This is a vocabulary page for you. Okay, if it'll load. It's being really slow today. Okay, so we've got our three types: producers, consumers, and decomposers. And the instructions say write the definitions in the green boxes and examples of each in the orange boxes. So I did my example, and I'm going to make it bigger. Okay, you won't see me for a second. All right, so you can see I wrote the definitions, and I got them right from the lesson, and they'll also be in your instruction page. And then I just wrote a whole bunch of things down that I could think of. So producers: grass, plants, moss, algae, apple trees, crabgrass, Joshua trees, spider plants, because I've got one in my house. Anything that is a plant can be in here. Consumers: an organism that gets their food from eating producers or other consumers. So I came up with a whole bunch: tigers, lions, and bears, deer, water beetles, ants, spiders, humans, blah, 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 blah. Decomposers. Got those? Then I put a bunch of those down there. Okay. Yours will need to look like this. It is due tomorrow evening. I will be correcting these this weekend. So please have that done. Instructions right here. Okay. It looks like this. There's the definitions and the instructions here too. Okay. No reason not to do it. Now, one last thing before we go. I'm getting a lot of people who are redoing low assignment grades, or they are turning in things late. Now, if you want me to correct them, you have to come up here to late and redo work notifications, and you need to put it in here. So, for example, I've got a few people who have put some in here. Okay, so I got this one that's missing for me from Michaela. I have no idea, Michaela, which one it is. So if you notice, Chris, he went in and redid a lot of these because he wanted a better score. It's got the date it was assigned. It's got the title, and I know who it is because it's under his name. You must do it this way or I cannot find it. Okay, a lot of you are just putting a message in the assignment that you did it. I can't check every assignment every day for every class. That's over 150 things to check. I can't do it. You must do it here. All right. I'm also going to send an email to parents about this. All right. I love you guys. Have a great weekend, and I will talk to you guys later.